Hello, welcome to the Brownian Ocean. I'm Anna, banana. I forgot my name.
Hi, I'm Ananya, and today we are joined by my very good friend Trina. So, Trina and I go way back. I think I know her from at least 10 years ago when I first came to the US. She was my first friend. Currently, she is a lecturer at LSU. She completed her PhD in agricultural economics at LSU. She has a passion for diversity and inclusion championship at LSU. And as a hobby, she also does photography and is very interested in languages. So, hi, Trina.
Hi everyone. It's so nice to meet all of you virtually though.
What are we talking about today?
Why don't we talk about languages? Like all of us are multilingual. So, and in many of our discussions, we talk about how languages affect our daily life, how accent influences us, how we are worried about pronunciations, accents sometimes. And given that I teach in classroom, I actually sometimes I feel I worry too much about all these things.
Yeah, I guess the first struggle I had 10 years ago in USA was people not understanding me even though I thought my English was okay. From then I started having a little bit of an insecurity about the way I speak and the way I speak too fast or something like that. Did you have the same problem, Anna, when you came into Austria?
Okay, so my first time using like English in my daily basis was in a job environment, right? So I got this job as software developer, and we had teams across multiple parts of the globe, from Munich to Shanghai. So
Oh, wow.
English was our main language. And it was really a struggle and an insecurity for me because my English back then was not really good. So we learned English in school, but not that much. And I had not actually. I never needed to speak English on a daily basis, so I kind of forgot about it. And then I was in this job, and I needed to call people and write emails. It was really tough. So, but it was at the same time very helpful because it gave me time to learn or relearn English slowly, because it was not that I needed these every day. I needed these maybe for a call, 15 minutes, or for an email. So I could, in a time of a year, really work on my English slowly.
That's interesting because I remember yesterday when I was speaking to Trina, she was also telling me about emails, right?
Yeah.
So, how long it takes for us to write emails?
Yeah, I mean, more than writing it, like before sending, I will proofread it so many times. So earlier I used to do it for like longer period, but now I have kind of got rid of this. Okay, let's send it. See, I grew up in India, so I didn't study in an English medium schools. The medium of instruction was Bengali. So when I came to US, everything was in English. Speaking to people, writing emails, like studying. So I think somehow I wanted to be perfect, and that kind of influences my email as well, this idea that I have to be perfect so that the person who is reading it doesn't think less of me.
Yeah, because I think back home we have this issue where if we cannot speak English absolutely correctly, and I don't know, Anna, if it is the same thing in Portugal also, that we think that people will think less of us. Like we have this huge colonial hangover where English is how your intelligence used to be judged. I think that has become much better now, but it used to be that way for so long. Like even here, when people didn't understand me, I would just go into a little bit of a shell that, oh god, I should just stop speaking right now because they didn't understand one sentence or my accent, because of course I'm from a different part of the world. How will they immediately understand me? And so that struggle came into when I had to start teaching. That kind of overflowed into my teaching. But Trina, you have been teaching for so long. What has your experience been like?
So when I first started teaching here in US, I was a grad student. I came to US in 2010, and from 2011 I started teaching. And at that time, like I was kind of thinking in Bengali and constantly translating. So that time, like I struggled a bit. But the thing is that when I started learning economics in India, that was during my undergrads, I learned in English. So there were two things going on. Spoken English wasn't that good, but when I was teaching in classroom, given that I learned economics in English, I wasn't struggling that much. If I had to like continue a conversation, I was struggling. Okay. Then I got some reviews where students told me you have a strong accent, which is true. I have a strong accent. Like it was highly influenced my, I think, Bengali. So, but then over the years, like I dropped accent. At the same time, I dropped my own internal biases. Like I now tell students, see, I come from India. I will have some accent. There are some few words I don't pronounce properly. There are few words I say differently. So, but I will make sure that when I teach, at the end of the day, you understand it properly. So I told them, and this actually helped me very much. So when I put this on the table, that see, I have an accent, so then students started sharing things with. For example, one student told me her mom is from Texas, dad is from Louisiana. She grew up at Texas, studying at LSU, that is Louisiana. And she told me, don't worry about this. Every time during holidays when I go back to Texas, my mom teases me with my accent. So, and then different students told me this. So I felt like I really don't have to worry about all these things. As long as I'm teaching properly, as long as students are able to understand the economics I'm teaching, I am good. And believe it or not, last 2 3 years, I don't get a single comment on my review, like semester end review, that she has a strong accent, because I have already told them I have accent. They know that I have an accent. So I think that kind of helped me a lot. And I do talk to people, to talk to students about language accent a lot, even though I'm not teaching a language course. So this has been my experience. This has been a very good learning curve, because we all have, like, at least I had this internal bias that I have to be perfect in English when I'm speaking. So it impacted me. But
So it's interesting for me that so somehow in economics, as you were saying, you got used to it in English and you feel comfortable teaching in English and economics. But did you feel the struggle of just on the social life, on the social level, interacting with other people, that somehow you could not articulate your ideas as well in English, for example, and feeling a bit frustrated with that? Because that happened to me. So I just wanted to know whether you felt.
initially, I would say yes. Initially means when I just came to United States. So if I had to speak with someone who just know English, no other language, and I have to continue the conversation in English, then it was a struggle for me a bit initially. But then again, this was my own internal struggle. Most of the time, people told me, "Oh, I admire people who know multiple languages." But when, if I'm talking about conversation with Indians who doesn't speak Bengali is my mother tongue, then it wasn't that difficult, because if I'm speaking with Indians, we can continue conversation in English, Hindi, and of course mother tongue, our mother tongue. So it
Yeah.
wasn't that much. This was my experience.
Yeah, because I have this kind of funny story. Because when I got this job, when I needed to speak English, so then after some time, I actually met my partner, and we speak English because he's not from Portugal, and English is the only common language we have. And when we started dating, sometimes I will tell him, like, I promise you I'm not this stupid, like because I just couldn't somehow I didn't even have the vocabulary to formulate my ideas, and I would get so frustrated, like I just can't explain you what I want. And if I could just talk in Portuguese.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a friend of mine had once said that he could communicate with his girlfriend in English and that was okay. But when he had to like say something which was a very deep thought, he was not able to articulate that in English because he's used to doing that in Bengali. So he would say, I struggle with that so much. And ultimately, I mean, he said he still continues to struggle. So I resonated with that because whenever I have tried dating in USA, that's what would happen. Like initially it would be okay with just like basal conversations, but when I'm trying to explain like a nuance of something, it would be hard for me to say it in English. Even though I am actually quite comfortable in English, but I don't know, something happens. Like I joke with my mom sometimes that whenever I have to speak English for a very long time, my jaw hurts. And that never happens in Bengali. I don't know why. Because I guess I'm trying so hard.
Or we are used to, like, basically our facial muscles are used to. And if you're very tired, like after the entire day's work, sometimes I randomly infuse my English with Bengali words. Then I realize, oh, okay, yeah, I wanted to say this. I will add a funny story here about accent. So it's like I was visiting my brother in Germany. My brother lives in Germany, and we were seeing each other in person after 4 years. Most of the time we were speaking Bengali, but sometimes, like, we were traveling, and if we had to speak to someone, I was speaking English. And my brother was saying, you have a fake accent. So I was getting very irritated. Why are you saying I have a fake accent? And he said this multiple times. Then when it was time for me to come back to US, and we were standing in front of American Airlines counter, and there were so many other Americans standing, and he said, okay, like, oh, I haven't heard this kind of English for a long time, because he lives in Germany. He speaks with Germans who has their own accent, and then my accent was weird for him. So he said, you have a fake accent. It's neither Bengali, neither Indian or English. So I told him, see, this is my United Nations accent. So I don't know. I don't know from where it came, but
Yeah, I think there was also a joke in one of the comedy shows I used to follow for a while, that this guy, his cousin lives in Singapore, and so he has an immediate Singapore accent whenever he has to order food in a restaurant. And he told his cousin that, why did you suddenly start speaking like that? Like, you don't speak like that. And then he said, well, he won't understand. And I decided to do my own experiment. This is me in this case,
Mhm.
where I started speaking in like the way they enunciate the words in USA, and whenever I would order in that manner, they would get it in a heartbeat, like immediately they would understand me. But if I speak in my very Indian accent, that's so much of a struggle even now when I'm ordering food at restaurants. It's so frustrating,
Yeah.
and it's no one's fault. Like, they don't know my accent, they are used to Americans, but I get it. Like, I get tweaking your accent a little bit so they understand you. So
Exactly. So when I'm teaching, it's like my job is to make sure that student understand what I'm saying. So I
yeah.
haven't consciously changed my accent, but I have tried to make sure that, okay, these are the words that I should say properly. These are the things that I should say properly, slowly. And what I have realized is, like, first year students, they struggle, but over time, like, given that they take courses from different non-native English speakers, when they're kind of about to graduate college, they get used to it.
Yeah, and I guess we have to cut them some slack, because at the end of the day, there are many people who come from especially rural areas. So they are used to a certain very thick accent. But having said that, I remember yesterday you were telling me about some story, right? About your professor and his wife, and how intelligence and English can be linked sometimes.
So one of my colleague, he was telling, he's American, his wife is African, and he was mentioning this, like, whenever he makes any mistake in English, people think, okay, maybe it's a silly mistake, the person had to go somewhere, it's just a mistake.
And
But
he's from USA.
he's from US, and according to him, like, whenever the same thing happened with his wife, people questioned her intelligence. This is what he mentioned. And also, if you think about India,
Mm-hmm.
we have this, right, elitism, English elites. So
Yeah,
now I was
yeah.
doing some research before, like, today's conversation, and I saw there is a 2014 report published by Center for Research and Debates in Development Policy, New Delhi, and they were saying that this is about Indian men. If someone is very fluent in English, they will be earning 34% more than men who know little bit English.
Oh, wow.
And those men who know little English, they will be earning 13% more than people who doesn't even know English.
Any
Okay,
English.
this is a 2014 data, and we have seen is this is statistical proof, but we know this, that elitism exists when it
Yeah.
comes to English, right? So, Anna, you
Yeah.
have any experience? Like, you grew up in Europe, so how are things
Hmm.
there?
So in Europe, there is many languages, right? A bit like in
Yeah.
India.
Mm-hmm.
So English kind of became the standard, but I think that at least for Portuguese, we pick it up rather quickly. So there is no, let's say, elitism per se with English. because kind of everybody speaks English. Is a bit weird, I know. But I know, for example, as a because you're talking about the colonial background and stuff like this, I know that this happens in Brazil with Portuguese. So Brazil speaks Portuguese, but they have their own variant, let's call, of Portuguese. So it's Portuguese from Brazil. So the grammar changes. They have a lot of words that we don't use. So it's the same language, but it's quite different already. And I heard from friends from there that if you want to be like in the academic world, you kind of have to write in this Portuguese from Portugal. What is really weird because the language is really different. And if you're not able to do this, there is actually like consequences. People will think that again you are not smart enough. For me, it was a bit of a shock because I understand that the origin of the language was in Portugal, but now we speak these kind of two variants. So why one, you are smarter if you can speak the version from Portugal if you actually grew up in Brazil, right? I don't know. It's so yeah. So these I know from Brazil, but then in Europe, yeah, we don't have the same problems with language, I will say. Although, for example, now I'm in Austria and I don't really speak German, and that can be a problem.
Okay.
Of course, I'm working in computer science, so most of the time I can avoid any problems related with language because we end up speaking English. But if you want to work in other areas, you gotta know German. And yeah, so there will be discrimination against you if you don't know German. I'm just in a very privileged situation here. Yeah, so that's the thing about Europe. There is many languages and is usually kind of good if you know the language of the country where you live. Yeah, so. But
Yeah.
then again, if you are a white person, yeah, maybe you can.
Yeah, or bypassing. Yeah. Yeah, I get that actually. Sounds a little bit like India's relationship with English, even though there are so many other languages. And did you guys, since both of your academics, have trouble writing in English? Because I struggle with that a lot. Like I read in English all the time, but when I have to write, I have trouble forming thoughts sometimes. Did you guys have that problem too, both of you?
I didn't. The reason is like I learned economics in English, in the sense the medium of instruction was English when I started learning economics. So
Mm-hmm.
I, of course, I did struggle, but it wasn't like a spoken English part, because I was constantly thinking about economics in English, the words, the terms, theorems, and everything. So yeah, it wasn't a big struggle for me.
For me, it was actually a very big struggle.
I understand that, yeah, because I still have it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not only the language. I tell this story many times to my friends. So it seems that the way we build the thought about things, so in Portuguese and in English, is kind of the opposite direction. So when I think in Portuguese, I build my idea from like the reasons, just the justifications, and then at the very end, I say what's my conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in English, and actually it was a professor from my bachelor's that detected this and helped me to identify this problem. So in English, you start with a conclusion and then you kind of build your case. And I never thought about it. And it was during my bachelor's that I needed to write my first, let's say, text in English, scientific text,
Mm-hmm.
And he read it and he was like, yes, this is English, but this is not English.
Yeah, yeah. When I wrote my first paper and I gave the first draft to my professor, he said the same thing. He said that this is all making sense, but this is not how academic texts are written, because academic texts are written in mostly American English, like the way they structure things, at least in our case. So it was a very weird struggle. Like I had to almost read papers and copy the way they are writing,
Me
their
too.
writing style. You right? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I needed
So
to pick up some sentences and
yes, yes, certain words that they would use again and again.
yes,
Like we infer. Usually we don't talk like that.
yes, yes,
Like I would say, oh, I conclude, but no, we infer this. We do that. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, this is so hard.
So
But
it's
yeah.
really funny because, of course, then I left my bachelor's and I went, to have these jobs and I kind of relearn English. And right now in my brain is like I have two different ways to think. I have the Portuguese way and I have the English way.
Mm-hmm.
And the English way is very trained for the scientific things because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I do. And then it's interesting because whenever I come across a paper that's written by a Portuguese person that's working in a Portuguese institute, I can detect it immediately, even without reading the name, because of this way of thinking, So somehow, because
Oh.
they stayed in this culture, right? And they were not forced out of that. Because I would
Mm-hmm.
write the papers and then the co-authors will be like, oh, this is weird, and they will kind of
Yeah.
force me to change. So if you don't have this and you're just saying this your way, yeah, it's so obvious. And I sometimes have a bit of a laugh, like, oh yeah, now I see what the professor saw, like back all these years back. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys, Anna, do you also teach?
No, no, no. Luckily, I
Because I
guess.
was going to ask if you guys, then Trina, maybe you can tell us if you faced any prejudice in the classroom, because I have a very short story about that.
No, like initially, like I was telling, when I was a grad student and I was teaching, I saw a few comments like, okay, you have strong accent. And I remember when I just started this faculty position, I used a colleague's notes, and one student wrote in review that PowerPoint slides are not clear enough. She uses weird English. The thing is that I was actually using someone else's PowerPoint and who is native English speaker. So that's
Oh.
one time I remember, okay, this person thinks that I wrote everything, which wasn't true. So other than that, I never faced anything. For me, when it in US, most of the time the comments are very positive. Like my
Mm-hmm.
advisor told me, I kind of really admire people who are writing their dissertation in English, which is not their own mother tongue. So yeah, for me the comments have been positive. But one thing I want to add here, and this is a funny thing, and I still struggle. So it's about giving exam and taking exam, right? So it's like, as a professor, I give exam to students, right? If I'm
Yeah.
speaking in English, and
But in
students.
Bengali, you give exam as a student.
Exactly. If I am translating from Bengali, I take exam, right? But I
Yeah.
have to say, okay, I will be giving exam to you. And I struggle every time. Like this semester also it happened. So it's like give and take. I am not good at giving and taking, I guess, here.
I mean, when you say pass out and you say graduating, I guess graduating now has become better English for us in USA. But once or twice, I would tell people that, oh, when are you passing out? And they're like, what? Why? Why will I pass out? I'm not sick. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not what I meant. And also, like, certain words are different in USA. Like, for example, I always call brinjal a brinjal, and then here people call it eggplant. And I'm like, what is eggplant? It's not even egg. Like, what is this weird word? But
Exactly.
yeah, I
Then
had I had struggles with those words.
bell pepper and capsicum, right?
Oh yeah, bell pepper and capsicum. Yeah,
Then
and I'm like, bell pepper. It's not even a pepper. It's not even spicy. Yeah, I don't understand the logic behind the words
Okay,
sometimes.
now this was interesting because so in Portugal we called eggplant berinjela. And I was wondering where the hell does this come from? Because no other European country that I'm aware of calls it berinjela. And you call it berinjal?
We call it brinjal in India. All the texts that would show us what this purple vegetable is, it is a brinjal.
Ah,
It's always a brinjal. Yeah,
okay.
I thought Europe calls it brinjal.
No, no, they call it always like aubergine.
Aubergine. Okay, okay.
And I actually stopped using the Portuguese word because nobody understands me. So I always use aubergine or some portion of
Yeah,
aubergine.
that makes sense. I still don't get eggplant. Like, it just does not look like an egg to me. I'm sorry,
Are we going to put
but
the berinjela eggplant emoji?
yeah, and the emojis are something
Language
different.
confusion much.
yeah, emojis are universal language. So
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. Whoever came up with emojis is a smart person.
yeah, that's why you use that in smartphones, right? But this is another thing. Like, I love cracking jokes, and I used to struggle when I had to crack jokes in English. So now I feel like my English has improved, so I can make puns.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes
I know,
sense.
I know it's bad most of the times, but still I can do that. So
So I start the new type of jokes. When you start to know a lot of languages, so I know Portuguese, I know English, I know a bit of German. So you start making these jokes that are like going, you need to know three languages to understand what's happening.
Sometimes you have to explain those jokes, and then they're not jokes anymore.
Yeah,
They are not funny anymore.
They're funny because it's like writing a dissertation again because you were explaining.
Yes, you need to give. Okay, do you have 5 minutes? Because I need to give you a background story to this. And
This is one of the reasons our languages are so fascinating. Like you can connect them, right?
It is nice for me, I guess, to have friends who are also multilingual, because even if they are not multilingual in the same way that I am, I understand where they're coming from when they're making those jokes. And at least, hey, at least I make myself laugh, right? So
yeah.
why not?
So basically, a part of the population prefers English. So there is this thing, right? Oh, if you know English, you are smart enough. And that is reflected in salary, that is reflected in the job.
It's so funny because English is such a stupid language. It's like the easiest language to know.
Yeah.
No? It's like the easiest language.
Yeah, actually, I feel English is very easy. Right now, I'm learning German and I'm struggling. Like, pronunciation is different.
So, on that note, we will wind down and go to our last or second segment, which is recommendations. So, Trina, what will you recommend our listeners this week?
Okay, so I'm currently reading a book that called The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. It's about race relations in United States. But as I was reading, I actually found so many similarities when it comes to caste system in India. So if you are interested about race, then caste system, this is a very good book, The New Jim Crow. And then there is another book I just finished reading, and I would like to recommend this to everyone. It is called The Body Keeps the Score. It's by
Oh, yeah.
it's by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. It's about trauma. It can be any kind of trauma and how our brain reacts. So I want to add something here, like, because I feel this is important, though we're deviating a little bit. So sometimes, like when it comes to survivors, people say, oh, people in the sense, even those people who are in a decision making position, they say, okay, this person is giving different accounts about the same thing, right? So the reason is the person is very traumatized and actually brain releasing different hormones to forget that situation. So this book actually helped me understand like how trauma affects people. Okay,
I
it's
see.
how we
I watched a video on this and that seemed very
yes.
interesting.
So it will help us understand ourselves and how to treat other people who are traumatized because of different reasons. So these two books I really love, and I would recommend everyone to read this.
Yeah, those are brilliant recommendations. We will leave them in the show notes as always.
Thank
So, on that note, thank you, Trina, for joining us today. This was a wonderful discussion.
you.
It was a very light and fun discussion, actually,
Yeah.
which I did not expect. So, thank you so much. Hope you join us again in the future.
Yes, I will. I really enjoyed this. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And thank you, Anna, our lovely producer. Okay, so on that note, we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.
Yes, I can be. Whoa, boom, boom, and zippity zoom. Love is sweet, love is grand, works hard.
We have 30 faithful listeners at least.
Oh my God.
I'm
This is
joking.
like all our family and friends.